So I started my career in engineering. I was an electronics engineer, actually graduated in the UK, but my first significant role was with Telstra. And I spent 20 years with Telstra in Queensland. My role was working on the mobile telephone network. At the time when I arrived, it was we were actually putting in the last of the manual networks, and we then moved on to the first of the automatic networks, the AMP system, the GSM system, and the huge explosion that became throughout the 90s and early 2000s within Telstra. And that actually led me to look for opportunities elsewhere. And I managed to score the job as the Chief Information Officer for the International Red Cross based in Geneva. So I moved to Geneva and I spent 5 years in that absolutely fascinating role, which was certainly one of the highlights of my career. I arrived shortly after the Asian tsunami. Those who are old enough will remember that. It was a huge destruction. 250,000 people lost their lives, and the Red Cross was very, very heavily involved in the recovery effort over the next few years. So that formed a major part of my work, was working with the Red Cross societies around the tsunami recovery, and the other big programs that we were running were around HIV/AIDS. So I spent a fair bit of time on the HIV/AIDS program in Africa. At the end of that, I returned to Australia. I've had 2 other CIO roles in large and significant organisations. The area that was of most interest to me in terms of getting IT right was getting the business analysis side right. So I actually moved into business analysis consulting with a small business analysis focused company. The business analysis role was pretty young. As a profession, it's not been around for that long. And when I became a CIO, the role itself, I don't think was terribly well understood or articulated. And yet the mechanisms that were used in business analysis, I saw throughout the IT department and throughout business more generally. And I had found it quite difficult as a CIO to recruit the appropriate people with the right abilities. And particularly if you step outside of that project environment, if you wanted to do work in the strategic area or in the sort of portfolio or even the ongoing operations area, there seemed to be a shortage there, and I saw it as an opportunity. I mean, we're all thinking about COVID at the moment. It's had a huge impact on our organisation, IIBA, as well as every other. And when the pandemic hit early on, I contacted one of my colleagues who works at a high level in Queensland government, and we were talking about the role of the business analysis and opportunities and challenges that are provided through COVID-19. And he was mentioning that in Queensland government, there was a strong desire to put together some very quick responses to the pandemic, and those responses were multifaceted. They, not only in health but in economics and a number of other areas, and they had pulled together some teams, some highly agile teams, to pull that together. And their initial experience was that even though they were able to very quickly develop some solutions, those solutions didn't really meet the stakeholder needs. And I think one of the key challenges that we teased out in our conversation is that the teams they were able to pull together were largely of existing staff who might be able to be redeployed. So they had a number of project managers, they had operations staff, they had coders, but they had a real paucity of business analysts. And that's partly because business analysts tend to be always fully occupied, because as soon as someone realizes their capability, they load them up. But also I think that it lacks a good solid career structure and understanding of business analysis role. within Queensland Government and many other governments. So that was a bit of a telling tale to me as to where business analysts should be able to shine in this environment. Difficulties where it's difficult to get business analysts into roles where they can develop from a more junior role into a more senior role. And I think a lot of businesses that I've seen have struggled with mechanisms for doing that. Those that have maybe been the most successful have been those that have grabbed the issue with both hands and done something like creating a centre of excellence, where they bring together business analysts. The Centre of Excellence works on a number of areas, such as the tools, the career development. It might provide high capability business analysts into projects at critical times, such as when you establish the approach. Then again, I'm not seeing it being broadly taken up across industry, maybe as much as I would hope. And I do see some organisations flip-flopping between an attempt to develop the business analysis profession as a specific role in a centralised structure, versus just leaving it to the sort of individual projects. The industry hasn't settled on that. I think IIBA's got a role to get out and talk about what we've seen, what we work, and I think all our members should be thinking about, what are the keys to success whenever they work on successful projects. And we need to be talking about that and marketing that broadly, not just within the business analysis community, but within the leadership of organisations in Australia. I suppose at the end of the day, what really matters is whether people put money where their mouth is and where they put their resources going into the future. And I think if you're going to take that perspective to the next step, then not only do you need to enhance the number of business analysts within an organisation, you've got to be making some fairly difficult decisions about where you're not going to spend the money and where you don't have to put so much money. Now I think there's a few of us who see that there are some huge advantages in moving away from a very heavy project-focused ICT environment into this agile, continuous product-focused environment, and that may necessarily mean less resources on the project focused side of the business. But it may also mean that you actually take a somewhat different approach and you skill up some of your managers in business analysis capability. So you have a mixture between your highly skilled specialist BA who might know all about an insurance agency, but also that you have your people managers might be BAs themselves, or at least may have achieved a BA certification on the basis that understanding how business works through the tools and techniques is really valuable to the business. Yeah, I think the product manager role can be very easily fulfilled by a competent BA. I think it's a very good skill set to bring into that product manager role. And I mean, what we have seen is we've seen organisations pivot very quickly to online communication, getting away from the office. Now, in a work from home environment, those sorts of happenstance interactions don't occur. So you're actually a bit more focused on your formal business analysis to ensure that you do get all the information correct, that you get the full suite of requirements, that you understand exactly who all the stakeholders are, that you undertake appropriate communication and consultation and the like. So it actually puts more focus onto the business analysts to do their job correctly. And it also probably means that they've got more people to talk to, and they themselves have to communicate a bit more broadly amongst stakeholders, which is certainly extending the workday of a number of BAs that I know. Within IIBA, we have our certifications,
Yes.
and those provide that grounding, and so we obviously move within our certifications around BABOK from ECBA through CCBA to CBAT, where you gradually get more and more experience and capability, and that's recognised through the certification, and that additional capability puts you in a good place to ensure that your business analysis works properly within the environment you find yourself. We've also now got new certifications coming through in Agile itself, which you were just mentioning. We've got it in cybersecurity and data analytics. So there's a broadening of that certification space, which is setting business analysts up. So certifications are certainly one, and IIBA runs these study groups. We run a small number of mentoring programs to mentor BAs in their career, which we think is really important. We run a series of regular events. I think they're running every fortnight at the moment. We also run a conference, which provides an opportunity again to build up your knowledge, to build up your skills and build up your professional network. This year, it looks like that's going to be entirely online, although we're hopeful that there may be some face-to-face meetings, but we're certainly planning around an online event. Every member of IIBA should have that as a personal goal to spruik the value of business analysis. I'd like to say a couple of things. The first is thank you for bearing with us. The changes that have occurred through COVID have actually put a lot of stress and strain on the organisation. I think through hard work of the individuals who are involved on the board and in the branches, like yourself, Susan, there's been a really strong effort put in to keep the organisation going, and actually to look for the opportunities and silver linings in the challenges that we've got. So I think really what I wanted to say is I want to shout out to all our volunteers and say a huge thank you to the volunteers for continuing to give their time and work with us, and that I know it's not always easy, and it's often frustrating, but the value of this volunteer effort producing a community spirit is really the thing that demonstrates value to me in IIBA. So thank you, everyone.